Drug combo!
Hello! Ty's running the computer right now, so it's just me.
He's giving the message tonight.
Yes. Oh, wait, what?
Yep, you're preaching,
Oh,
Jordan.
what?
You're the preacher.
So how is everybody? Good?
Hello.
Hello. There's Ty.
Hi.
He has returned,
I think we're good.
I think. Is it
I'm
maintainable?
out of the camera for a second. I'm making sure everything's working.
Maintainable. Check. Check.
Checking to make sure everything's good. Hi, Chloe. Oh, this is much more one-to-one. This is just barely behind us.
Oh, really?
That's amazing.
I'm sorry for the dead silence. I'm listening to myself talk.
Yes, it's kinda
That's weird. But that's good. That's good.
Hi, Chloe. What was I checking? I was actually on here.
So now we can like.
Oh, you can hear me. I was thinking if you could hear us. Yes, you can. The
Well,
answer is
we
yes.
can hear each
The
other.
answer is yes. We do have volume.
So if I
Okay.
say hi now, you'll be able to hear hi
I could,
right now.
I turned it off, so we're good. I think everything. So it looks like everything's working fine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go ahead and sit down now. Hi. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Chloe.
Hi.
I'm
Is
only saying hi
Chloe,
to-
is Chloe the only one there?
So
Again?
far,
Uh-oh.
a lot of people.
It's
Well,
a bad side.
no, a lot of people listen in later.
Yeah, I know.
I've noticed, so that's fine.
Last time Chloe was online, you know what happened.
I know what she knows what happened.
The train derailed.
Well, it could happen again.
and
It could.
many lives were lost.
But today we're at the church. We're not at my mom and dad's basement anymore, so we're moving up in the world.
Yes.
So we have a new setup here. I could show it off, because why not? It's kind of interesting what we got going on here.
Don't trip.
Trying not to trip with a lot of wires. So from this angle, everything looks the same. But if you turn over here, we're in the office, in the attic.
I was gonna warn you, this is a bad idea.
Thanks for warning me. It's a good idea. Zach has now entered the scene, as you can see. He's got some delicious treats for us today.
Why is it a bad
We just brought
idea?
in the office today, so this should be interesting.
Are we gonna vomit?
Pastor's bringing some delicious drinks too.
Maybe.
We have straws.
Yes, I do.
Uh-oh. Well, anyways, we're not gonna spoil what that
I
is
gotta
just
run
yet.
right back though.
Okay, watch out. There's
Cords.
a minefield up here. So that's our new setup. It's kind of weird being up in the church balcony, but it's cool. I like. It's nice to be in this spacious area. And Pastor
Yes.
Vern is walking on by.
Woohoo!
Yes. So, we don't quite know what the future looks like still. I know it's just
Yeah.
the story of this whole season, isn't it? I was thinking for a minute we might be back, but I don't think that that'll be for a little bit yet. But we'll
But
see.
we're right there. We're right
We're
there.
getting closer and closer every day of moving towards meeting together and putting some way for us to hang out in person. So we'll keep working towards that. But for now, we'll just have to take this on a weekly basis at this point. We're back to that. That's where we started, and I feel we're at that
One
phase
week
again.
at a time.
We're just got to take it 1 week at a time, and we'll see what happens. We just want to make sure we respect our community,
Yes.
our local officials more than anything.
Yes.
And that we respect you guys and make sure you guys stay healthy and safe.
Yep.
So yeah, want to go ahead and give a early shout out to Cameron and say congratulations, you're graduating soon, and we're sorry that this graduating season's awkward and kind of you don't get the big ceremony and everything. So here's hoping something works together for that, and we'll definitely be putting something together for you. So be anticipating that, Cameron.
I'll take you fishing.
well,
We'll make
of
a big
course.
fishing trip out of it, Cameron.
Well, of course. So, Cameron, if there's anything fun you'd like us to try to do for you, we'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
Let us know, because we all would like to do something special for you. And the rest of you guys who are listening in, if you'd like to write him a card or just a congratulations, go ahead and send that his way, or you can send that to the church if you don't know how to get that to him.
Right.
We just want to make sure we let Cameron know we appreciate him. We appreciate all of our graduates, and we're sorry that
Yeah, that's
so many
rough.
graduates have to. This is just a tough way for a school year and a school season to end. If you didn't care much for school, it might be kind of ambivalent towards
Yes.
it. It might be kind of like, eh. But if you do care, then it hurts a bit. It's a little strange and sad. But it'll all work out in the end. It'll all be okay.
Yeah.
I know these times are crazy and it seems like the world's crashing down.
Yeah.
So much unrest and hurt going on in the world. And it can be overwhelming, but we serve a God who is in charge and in control. And he loves everybody. He loves you. He's with you. And I believe good things are ahead. Sometimes you just got to fight through the bad times and work through them and learn from them, too. There's always something to learn.
Yes.
So always be looking to learn some lesson when you're going through a rough time. You might as well, because
Might as well take something.
you might as well take something from it, right? So, we're going back into our series. I debated myself. We're just going to stick to that for now. I was debating on changing things up, but I feel this could be the last one, but I also might do a couple more. I'm still trying to feel it out. Again, everything's minute by minute.
Yes.
We are putting together some plans for the summer, Becky and I. So just so you know, you don't have to worry about that. We are going to, I don't know what we'll be capable of doing, but
Right.
we want there to be something.
Maybe
even
local.
What?
Maybe local.
Yeah, it might have to be.
Within the area.
It might have to wait till August for us
Could,
to do
yeah.
something. But we are trying to put together some kind of event for us to share in. And we'll just have to wait and see how things move. But either way, we're looking at ways we can connect with you guys and make sure you have a good summer and also draw closer to Jesus and learn more about Jesus. And yeah. So, what?
Do the sermon earlier.
What? Oh, Zach's feeling sick. Don't worry, Zach. If you don't.
I just gotta run to the bathroom. I'll be back. Take care of this. Just might have to
Okay.
set back for later.
Okay, this
Yeah.
or the wait for that.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll wait. Okay, that's fine.
I won't be long.
Okay. Send a.
Takes a sleeping bag with him.
Pray for Zach. He is ill. He,
Ill.
he has an illness of the bowels. So, this is my slinky. Do you like it? Is it nice? Does it make a nice sound in the microphone?
You still pretend it's a tornado?
Is this a new kind of ASMR? Slinky ASMR? Will this put you to sleep at night? Or will it give you nightmares?
Or give you the cringies.
I don't know what this sounds like on a microphone. Probably sounds awful. I can't imagine it sounding that great. In person, I love the sound of a slinky. Anyway, I have my slinky here. I don't know why, but I do. So let's move on. We do have an activity for today, but as Zach just shared, I don't know if you heard, he's not feeling so well, and we need his help with this activity. So we're going to wait a minute on that. Trying to think of other news real quick.
What else?
I am putting together a youth discipleship course. I don't know when it will be ready, but there will be. I would like to know if you guys like. We've done booklets in the past. I want to know if those are helpful to you. If you like them to have. If you like fill in the blanks, or if you like just having note space to write in. We're looking to put something together this summer that kind of lasts all summer long. That's a lot like Ignite Summer.
Like a
And it-
booklet?
Yeah, a booklet. And we're going to do some Ignite Summer courses. So if you weren't a part of Ignite Summer, this will be kind of new to you. But basically, we talked about what it means to be a disciple, what it means to be a follower of Jesus. And we are going to do that again this summer. If we can't do it in person, we'll do it. We'll meet on Zoom, Google, whatever we can use. And we'll do that. So if you have any ideas towards that, or if you like that idea, let us know. I feel it'd be a great way for us to stay connected, whether it be
Right.
over the internet or in person. We'll make it work either way.
Yeah.
So we're putting that together. So if you have anything you'd like us to talk about specifically this summer, let us know. Becky's also planning a class called #Adulting. And it's a class about things you might not think about when it comes to being an adult that you want to know. There's a lot of stuff that your parents don't think to tell you. It's not that they don't want to tell you, it's just they don't think about it, and you don't think about it because you're a kid.
Right.
And then when you hit adulthood, you're like, oh my goodness, what is this?
Right.
I'm saying like anything from writing is something that sounds as simple as writing a check, starting a bank account, paying your taxes. They all sound super intimidating, but then when you know how to do it, it's not so bad. So it's going to be a very practical course. But there'll also be some like good teaching tied into it.
Right.
So we'll like be teaching you like how to be a good worker, how to do well at a job. Because Becky's actually has a fairly prolific work experience already. She's worked a lot of different kinds of jobs. And she always does her best at every job she's ever had. She just had some bad luck with layoffs repeatedly in Spokane, and that happens.
Yes.
But she has a lot of insight on that, and she's pretty excited to teach this class and put it together.
That'd be cool.
So yeah, I think you guys will gain a lot from that, and it'll be cool to hear from Becky more often, because she's very wise and has a lot of experience in this kind of thing. So look forward to that this summer as well. Trying to think what else we got coming up. We still have the Minecraft server up. I'll be back on this week, normal hours. Becky's calling me.
Mining
Uh-oh.
hours.
I'm getting a call from Becky.
A Becky call?
Yep, I have to take this. I gotta step away, guys. I'm sorry. Jordan, you have to entertain them without me.
No, don't leave.
Hello? No.
Well,
What's up?
it's just us. Well, hi.
No, we're not live streaming the Bible study. So no. You're fine. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead. Come back. Jordan just stared.
I've got nothing. We're a tag team in this tie, and when you leave, you're just like.
I had to step away just in case it was something serious. I didn't
Yeah,
want
you
to be on
got it.
camera.
You
But
got
it was
it.
fine. It was just a question about church.
But now you know that
And
I
she
can't hold on my own. I just be like, hi.
Coffee.
Yes.
Guys, if you have a beverage, let's partake together. It's communion.
Give me. It's good.
That is good coffee. I love me some coffee.
Right.
But anyways, I was saying we're still playing Minecraft. It's been a great way to connect. I loved hanging out with you guys when we can. If you haven't been able to connect or just haven't had the time to it, or you don't have Minecraft, I'd say talk to us about it. And like if you don't have Minecraft, but you could get, or maybe like there's a way you could get it, but maybe you don't have the money, maybe we could talk about working. I don't know. We want you to just be a part of it. We miss connecting with all of you. And we're also sorry about the Zoom, Google, whatever it was going to be. We were going to have a hangout, but I had to cancel it. I warned that might happen, and it did. So
Didn't happen.
we'll try to plan another one. Probably won't be able to do it this week, but we'll plan another one of those as soon as we can.
Right.
I'm even thinking about doing one either before service next week or after service next week. So let me know if that works for you guys, and we could just have a little bit of a hangout before or after service, and just kind of chat and catch up.
Yeah.
Next week, who knows? We might even be able to go get. What if we do a service like this, and then afterwards we meet up and go get?
That could work.
Who knows? We don't know what the world's gonna look like. Rough year, but we'll get through it. All right. So I think at this point, since we gotta wait on the game part, we'll go ahead and we'll just jump into today's message. I
Alrighty.
think. So to begin, as a reminder, our series is I Debated Myself based off a meme of, what is his name? Justin Jabali, something like that. I don't remember. Jabali was the guy's name. It's a meme based off a guy that made a face that's basically the face of like, I
yes.
see, you're trolling me. The meme is based off the idea of like when someone's leading you along, they bait you. They're baiting you into troll. You know, they're trolling you, they're baiting you. And then because of the meme face, they now called it jabating.
Yes.
It's when you realize you're being trolled. So the theme of this series is, I just realized I messed myself up. I made a mistake. I just realized I made a bad choice. I made a bad decision. What now?
Yes.
And so we've been looking at Bible characters in the Bible who have debated themselves, what we can learn from them, what we can learn how to avoid these situations or walk through them and overcome them. So today...
Learn from it.
Learn from it. So today we're talking about a famous biblical character named Sampson. There's a lot to learn from Samson. We're gonna call this conversation "Shrugging Samson." Like shrug. He shrugs. Shrugging Samson.
Not shrubs.
Not shrubbing. Not shrubbery. Shrugging. Shrugging. The more you say that word, the weirder it sounds.
Shrugging.
I feel like,
Kind of like saying stomach.
for some reason, whenever I make that sound, I feel like, you know, like when they clean your teeth with that really foamy stuff. That's what it feels like when I say shh, like repeatedly. Just to make me think of like that. It almost has like a sherbet taste. You know what I'm talking about? Like it's like that foam they clean your teeth with when you go to the dentist. It's like it has like a sherbet taste, and they're like it's very frothy and foamy. And whenever I say shh, it starts to I don't know. Okay.
We're getting stuck on shrubbery.
Anyway, shrugging Samson, and we're talking. So the idea of today's conversation.
Spent like 15 minutes going in the microphone. You're welcome, everybody. ASMR totally. Just
Chloe said she enjoyed the sound of the slinky, so there you go. Have some slinky.
are you sure she didn't like?
Oh, that was gross. Anyway, the idea behind Joe, the idea behind Samson is that he just kind of like with a lot of things in his life, mostly with morals and values and virtues. Right. He had an oath applied to his life. We'll talk more about that in a minute. And he was just kind of like, whatever. Rules are meant to be broken kind of mentality. The way I could like relate to this would be like if you're reading a recipe, like just on a low common denominator level. I feel like I haven't been looking at the camera for a while. Like I've been looking at other things as the camera because I'm not used to where the camera is. But
it's actually really nice because you actually have something to focus on and point.
Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah.
But for some reason I keep like looking. I'm like looking like
why
this.
Why didn't we do that a long time ago?
I don't know.
Because we could have looked at ourselves and we know what we're looking at. Before I'm just like.
It was just
Animal Crossing over here. Just.
Well, it was just a cramped space.
Yeah,
we were in a basement.
But see, now you're just like,
now it's a big, wide open office space.
Yes.
But anywho,
you have a target to look at.
Like the lowest common denominator of like this kind of thing where you're just kind of is like maybe you're reading a recipe and you realize, oh, I don't have sugar. It doesn't really need sugar.
I'll put starch in there.
I'll put something else in it. It's that kind of thing.
It's fine.
It's like, it's fine. Or you just skip a step entirely. Maybe you've been painting and you're just like, it's fine. I don't really need to do that. And you skipped a step and then it ruined everything. We've all done it multiple ways. We're just kind of like, you know what? It's not really, it's fine. You know, that doesn't really need to be there. Yes. Or like when you're putting something together and you have extra parts.
It's fine.
It's fine.
They give you extra parts to make sure it all works.
I'm sure it's fine. I did nothing wrong. But yeah,
that Lego man doesn't have a head.
There's something wrong here. Something very wrong. So real quick story time with Jordan and I. We've shared this.
Zach's a part of this.
And Zach is a part of the story. We've shared this story before, but we realized Jordan was reminding me there might be some of you that haven't heard this tale. So here we go.
Here we go.
Driving, in general.
Yes.
There are many ways, many ways and times you will find yourself saying, "It's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine."
Jordan was you were reminding me about a story.
Which one?
Of picking up my cousins.
Oh yeah, when we were picking up your cousins, I'm sure this is what we said. We're like, oh, it's fine. We'll make it back to Omak, and you know, not even close to Omak. The light comes on saying we need gas. You know, Ty panics, and so we barely make it down into Omak. And we're going, and as the gas goes, you actually roll into the gas station. It's fine.
Pulling it a little too close.
Yes. Yes, it runs out. I remember we just go
Yeah.
like that.
Another, the story you might be more familiar with is that there was one time we were going to go stay at a hotel, and my dad graciously purchased the hotel room for us.
Yes.
So he picked out where it was. So they told us where the hotel was, and so we just had to go find it. Well, on our way there, it was a long drive there. It was dark.
Yeah.
It was night, and it was in the city. It was in the Seattle area.
Oh, and driving from Tonasca to Seattle is a long drive.
It's a long drive.
That's-
It already been a
that's
long
good
day.
stretch. That's a good stretch.
Then we hung out with some of my friends.
Yeah.
And then we were on our way to this hotel. It was a long drive. It was dark. It was in Kent. I don't know Kent very well.
Yeah.
So that was also kind of another factor. That and I get lost in the city easily anyways. I'm terrible. I have a terrible internal GPS. I can get turned around very easily. Becky, on the other hand, she can navigate through cities with ease.
Oh, really?
She's-
She's the one that was good.
Well, she grew up in Spokane
That's true.
and California.
That's
So she's used to the city. She's accustomed to it. And I also think it's just something you're born with as well, just an innate sense of where you are.
Yes.
I feel if you're born in the city, you probably can learn to figure it out better.
Yeah.
But there's also just some people with an internal compass.
Yes.
Like Pastor Vern, for
Yes.
example, he has an internal compass. He can always find where he's going. He has that ability. I don't. What? Except for in Minecraft, Zach says. He gets lost in Minecraft very easily. But Minecraft's a video game, so it's a little
doesn't get
different.
lost in
It's a little different. Yeah, if you don't have coordinates, it is a little tricky. But anyways, we didn't know where we were going. We were just following my GPS. I entered in the location. It was taking us there, and my GPS wasn't the best at the time. We were still trying to figure out how GPSs worked at
Right.
the time. Maybe I should have known better how they worked. I mean, it was 2013, 2014, something like that. So, I mean, I probably should have understood how my phone's GPS worked. But as you all know, I'm not much of a phone social media person.
Right. That's true.
To me, phones and social media go hand in hand. I just don't care for either of them. I struggle with both of them. So anyways, running into that problem. So we follow my phone's location, and it leads us all the way. Now, describe where it leads us, Jordan.
So as we're driving by, I go, "Hey Ty, isn't that the hotel we're supposed to go to?" Ty goes, "Nah, that's not it. We're supposed to go all the way." Where did we go? Isn't that bad?
We were in Kent. No.
No, we drove
We were in a city near Kent. I don't
thought we
remember which
drove,
city it was.
A couple miles. It was more than a couple. It was 10. I thought 10
It
miles.
was 15, 30 miles
Yeah.
from where we were supposed to be.
So we drive past this hotel. I'm like, "Oh, hey Ty," as we're going, and we end up into this small little town. And it's what? It's 1 o'clock in the morning by now.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds about right. It was
And
getting pretty late.
so the GPS is turn here, turn here, turn here, blah 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 blah, and eventually we turn into this dimly lit, vacant lot. I turn to Ty, and I go, "Well, this is not the hotel." And then I burst up laughing because it's been a long day. I'm already kind of tired, and I lose myself. And then Ty's kind of still serious because he wants to get there. And and Zach's bursting up laughing too. We're all like, "This isn't the hotel. This is a creepy in the middle of a I don't know how well this town is, so
So it turns out the address Dad gave us was one number off.
yes."
Were we in Des Moines?
What?
Could have been.
Des Moines.
Maybe? I don't know where we were.
Could have been.
That sounds familiar.
It's near Kent.
That sounds familiar, but I'm not sure, to be honest. Could be.
It could have been.
But we were lost.
Yeah.
And you know what could have avoided this situation? If, from the outset, which I knew better, I'd actually sat down and pulled up the location and mapped it out. Like you're supposed to, but my whole attitude towards trips is always, it's fine.
It's fine.
I'll figure it out on the road.
Fine.
It's
the
fine.
The GPS knows what it's talking
We'll
about.
figure it out. It's fine. We'll just wait. Why plan early? Well, it's fine. Jordan, what you don't know is this actually happened to me and Becky recently.
Oh,
last year.
really?
Yes. We were in Seattle. We were going to my pastor friend Daryl Elliott's house. And I was like, I remember the way.
Ooh, where were we
Do you
driving?
see a trend?
Where were we driving at?
Seattle area, Bellevue.
Oh, Seattle
see
has
it?
a theme.
Do you see a trend here?
It'll eat you alive.
Zach can also. I think you were with me another time we were going to Daryl Elliott's place and I got us lost. Do you remember that? Yep. See,
As he nods his head.
there's a recurring
slowly.
pattern here, and that's that Ty doesn't know where he's going in Seattle, but he thinks he does. But I told Becky, it's fine. I know where I'm going. I've been there enough times. We get lost.
Where'd you end up at?
We wound up half an hour away from his house in the middle of another city. I
That's
don't
like-
even remember where.
That's like OMAC over.
Yep.
Here's the house.
The longer you wait, the nastier one of those.
Okay, we'll finish our story up. Basically, there's certain things you know you
That's
should do.
scary.
There are a lot of times where there's certain things you know you should do. Like you probably should plan your trip before you go on it, or at least know your map or know exactly where you're going. Exactly. Because if you don't, you're going to get lost and waste time and gas. And friendships
Yep.
will suffer.
I don't know. I think friendships grew a lot
Friendships
that
grow.
day.
Friendships are tested.
You were frustrated, but still, after that, when we got to the hotel, laid down, we're like, that was awesome. Passed out.
It is pretty funny. So, I mean, there is that. There's adventure to be had.
Either it'll grow or fall apart.
Or you'll crash and die. Which that may or may not have happened several times. It got close. We didn't do the dying part, but we almost crashed.
Yes.
Anyways, when you know to do better, or when you know what you're supposed to do, or you know what's right, or you know what the choice is, the good thing to do is, and you ignore it, you kind of wind up with the same problem Sampson had. Now, before we go any further into it, we have a game, an activity
Yes.
here. Zach, would you play the game title card?
And Zach says
It's time
gonna
for
go
a
bad.
mega game. You gotta do the full screen one, or it won't work. Mega game! The fighting robot!
There you go.
Mega game! Alright. The mega game for today is Will It Italian Soda? Zach has prepared for us 4 lovely
You
concoctions.
should probably bring the one that's going to go
I
bad
probably
first.
should have.
This is gonna be the worst one.
Okay, let's just do this. I should have got us
Do you want me to
water.
tell you what it is or no? Do you
We
want
have to taste it first and then guess.
Oh.
Okay. So we gotta share. Are you okay with this, George?
Who do you want to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll take turns going first.
All right, pray for us. I'm scared already. Oh.
what it is?
Oh.
Oh,
Oh.
You know what it is?
that's mustard.
No.
Is it salsa? Oh, it stays with you.
Close though.
Is it ranch?
It has chunks in it, though.
It is taco seasoning salsa.
Drink your coffee.
It's like taco sauce.
Oh, gross.
Ah, yes. It's taco water.
Taco water.
I need this. I need my root beer.
Okay, this one might actually be good. I don't
Let
know.
me just say,
This one,
on a scale of will it won't. That's I give it a
Yeah.
it won't.
Well,
No.
taco water.
it's not water.
It
though,
just
it's soda.
sounds weird.
It's soda though.
Taco soda.
Taco seasoning does not Italian soda. There you have it. It just made me feel very sad.
But the after flavor's not too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, this one is actually with Italian soda flavoring.
Okay.
It's just 2 flavors that might not go well together.
Oh,
But they might.
so contradictory flavors.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's my turn. this
Okay.
time.
You are Scottish Korean. You're a Scottish Korean.
But you gotta guess the 2 flavors too. There's 2.
Okay, you gotta wait though. You can't say. You gotta taste it now.
It's not bad, but it's.
It feels like
that-
I'm eating. You know what it tastes like? Potpourri.
Yes.
It feels like
So that is.
it tastes like the smell of potpourri.
What did you make? Zach, you made
It
potpourri.
tastes like a candle.
You made potpourri and
This tastes like a candle.
you are withered.
Like if you actually ate a candle, it probably just tastes like wax. But this tastes like the
Wow.
smell of a candle. I'm actually kind of amazed.
Yeah, this is amazing.
I don't like it,
Do
but
you know any of the flavors?
It's like,
There's 2 of them.
is it cinnamon?
No.
hazelnut,
Close. No. Cinnamon is closer.
cinnamon, peppermint.
Yeah. It's something flowery.
Does it have?
There's a
Strawberry?
strong scent like that, and then a fruit flavor.
Is it strawberry?
No, this is
I'm not
this
guessing
is the
that.
weird
It's
one.
confusing me. This is messing with me. I'm gonna start
You want me to
smelling
spell it?
things. It's just, yeah.
It's gingerbread and watermelon.
Gingerbread and
Gingerbread.
watermelon.
That's
This was
kind of
weird. Tastes like a candle. There you have it. You've heard it here first. You know what? I'll put this in the middle. Like this is a 5.
Well, okay, yeah, we'll go.
Yeah, let's rank them.
Yeah,
Maybe
this-
that's the easiest way to do it.
Can I see them?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
I see them on the screen.
This is good. That's,
Okay.
That's no.
This is disgusting. Yeah. Okay, I'm afraid. This one looks chunky.
Shouldn't be. That'd be weird.
Okay, pray.
Junky.
Chunky. I agree with that first impression.
Is this just soda?
No? There's something in it.
It's very bitter.
Oh,
It's just bitter. I don't taste anything.
yeah.
All I experience is bitterness.
Is it ranch?
Both in my heart and in my taste.
You'd taste it if it was ranch.
All I experience is bitterness in my heart and on my taste buds.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
Whatever didn't mix very
It
well.
I'll just say this. I
But it
know
was
it's probably
never- It
wrong.
was never good to begin with.
I'm gonna say it's Diet Pepsi.
This is regular Pepsi.
Why would it be
Oh,
white?
it's regular
It's
Pepsi.
regular Pepsi.
Why did it turn white?
It tastes like
That's because there's
the Italian soda.
Oh.
It made
That's
it.
why they're all the whitish.
It made it taste like.
It's just Pepsi.
It made it taste like a Diet Pepsi.
Yeah.
That's what it made it taste like.
This one it kind of worries me because it's like sitting on the top.
Uh-oh. What is that? Pea?
Yeah, but it might actually be really good. Just don't drink a lot.
Oh, that's
I'm
scary.
scared. This soap?
What is that? Egg yolk?
No.
Just don't drink a lot.
I actually want to try that one after all is said and done.
That's a weird taste.
Here,
I need one more sip. I don't want to, but I need it.
well,
We're gonna have to mix it a little bit.
this
too.
we're going that.
Mix it.
Yeah, maybe mix it a little bit more because it's kind of sad.
Is it like
I don't know what that is.
you've stumped
Here's-
us this time? Zach.
Honest admission here. I don't like club soda. I don't like Italian sodas anyways. They're
Yeah,
just
try that.
they taste bitter to me. All right. I'll try.
Try it again.
Go for it
It's a little
again.
bit better.
I don't know what that is. I can't
It
tell.
looks like eggs.
I don't think it is. I don't know what that is. I'm trying my best to figure out in my head what that could be. I got no comparison.
It just tastes like milk.
It's popcorn butter.
popcorn butter.
Oh,
You don't taste that. It's what,
now
yeah.
I get it.
I'm gonna try it.
Yeah.
It's like an after flavor. That's what it is.
I kind of taste it.
Let me
Yeah.
Try it one more time. Then.
It's not as strong as I. was
It's the
thinking it
after
would be.
flavor where you get it.
I can see it, but I still don't
I
honestly
think
taste
it's
it.
the soda flavor makes
Could
it too
be.
strong.
So there you have it.
So when you poured that in, it just all floated to the top.
Yeah, mostly.
What was this one again? This was the Pepsi.
So,
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be honest.
No. I
Okay.
put them in order. This
Okay.
is the one we like the most.
Okay.
That's the gingerbread one.
Gingerbread.
This is the Pepsi.
Okay.
Between these two, which one?
This
do you
one
like?
wins for sure.
Okay.
That's just nasty.
So this is
So
just.
that one's drinkable.
Now, personally, even though I didn't like it, I would still put the Pepsi highest for me.
Oh, you like that one?
I like Pepsi.
Well, I mean, I don't like it, but of these four, it's the one I could drink
But what do you
the whole
think?
thing. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which would you choose?
Oh.
I need some root
Because
beer
if
to
you
wash
don't
that
agree,
down.
then you just put them both first.
Yeah, I'm just like.
You could try it again.
Yeah.
The only one I wouldn't try again is the taco.
Yeah, that was
The
rough.
taco.
That was sad.
Wait, so what is that? Like just taco seasoning in there?
It's like a.
What is it like sauce?
It's like a sauce.
It's like a taco sauce.
My mouth is now lubricated.
I put it in there. I was like, this is not-
A well-oiled machine.
Well-oiled.
You
You drank butter, a candle,
To be fair,
I-
and taco
there
sauce.
wasn't a lot of options.
No.
Yeah, because things have been cleaned out.
This is like when
I
mixed
think
random
this is a
things
good
together and told
lineup.
the youth to eat
I really
it.
do.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Good job. Thank you, Zach.
Bravo,
You
Zach.
can take these away now.
Keep one.
Do you want one? I'm not
I'm
gonna
good.
take 'em. I'm good too. Thank you, Zach.
You don't want the flour one?
The flour one. It really did taste like potpourri. It was weird.
Yeah, that one. That
It was
one.
like eating a candle, but it actually tasted like the smell.
Yes.
It was really strange. Ah, so there you have it. I would argue that none of those things Italian soda, but
Well,
I don't
Maybe-
really like
what
Italian
if there
soda.
actually was an Italian soda?
Is that the Pepsi one?
No, the gingerbread watermelon.
Oh, I guess it was
Just a weird
syrups.
flavor.
But if you were on a desert island and you had to choose one,
The Pepsi one.
okay,
I
you
would choose.
that one.
It was just.
Go with the floral one.
I'd choose the Pepsi one.
I kind of like a floral.
I chose the Pepsi one just because it's
Yeah.
the most subtle. Like it just had the least flavor. They're just normal but bland.
You could
and-
choose the butter one and start fires with it. Just scoop off the oil.
Just scoop off the oil. There you go. It's a beverage and it starts your fire. You can cook with it and you can drink it. It's the canola oil we've all dreamed of.
I got something for you.
Butter oil. Papa. Yes.
So, let's talk about Sampson.
Yes.
What can you? I'm gonna first check the comments, see if there's anything going on. Oh no, Chloe says the train's crashing again.
You want me to pull the stream up?
That was a while
You can
ago.
watch the stream.
Okay, I'll disconnect my phone.
Wow, Chloe.
Yeah, thanks a lot for your
Hi.
vote of confidence. So, let's talk about Sampson.
Let's talk about
So, to talk about Sampson, you first need to look at what book in the Bible Samson appears in.
right?
And it's none other than the bloody, the gory, the violent, the disturbing,
Should you do that like an announcer? Like, the bloody, the gory.
the disturbing book of Judges. Welcome to the Judges. We got funny names. That's an actual parody song. It exists out there. Look it up. Welcome to the Judges.
Yes.
By the Apologetics. It's real. It
Yes.
worked, and it's really it's pretty funny. Anyways,
Yes.
The Judges is a disturbing book, and it's an
That's going to make us laugh every time.
it's a
We should
classic.
not be allowed to
That's
see
a classic
that.
meme.
The
The book of Judges is the story of how Israel just can't get their act together. They are constantly messed up. They constantly walk away from God. God saves them. They reject him and worship Baal. God saves them. They reject him and worship Baal. God
Which one's
saves
Baal?
them.
He's the one that was made of hay.
Wow.
They'd walk up to him and go, "Hey, Bill."
What? Boom, just like that.
Yeah.
Came
Hey,
crashing
Bill.
down.
Here you go.
Wow.
Yeah,
Who is he though?
it's just it was a common false god that people worship at the time. I don't.
Hear the sound effects.
Can you hear the sound effects? Uh-oh. I'll have to fix that. Should I take time to fix that now?
Yeah,
Probably
just-
not. What? Real quick?
You have to come over here then. Say hi to the people.
Hi, the people.
Hi, the people.
Hi, the people.
Hi, the people.
Why is that happening?
I don't know. It's volume's on.
Oh, it's probably this.
Hi, the people.
Hi, the people.
Hi, the people. Buzz.
I smell good.
I smell good.
I was like, I would sit far away from Jordan if I smell bad. Did you try it?
No, but it should work.
Okay, we're gonna do a test.
Do
Sure,
a test.
Do a test.
Do a test. Tell us.
Nice on.
We'll see if it worked.
Did
Let
you
us
hear
know.
that? Did you hear that?
So,
Let us know
before we
in the comments below.
okay. I don't know why I'm watching. So,
Did that say it's Zach?
yes, it did.
They're
Or it said
happy
hi,
to
Zach.
see you.
So, yeah, Baal was a common god worshipped in that time in like the world outside of Israel.
I was just wondering if it's like a golden calf or
I don't have
a
a-
half fish, half person. You know,
I don't have a
some
picture.
weird
It
thing like
wasn't
that.
half fish. It was I don't remember what
Okay.
Baal looks like.
Moving
to
on.
be honest. But no, well, maybe later.
Yes.
We can look at Baal some other time. But the worship of Baal often involved like child sacrifice and all kinds of messed up stuff.
Right.
Lots of like temple prostitution, that kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, dark, twisted stuff. And they would just always reject God. And the phrase used constantly throughout Judges, they did whatever they thought was right. They did what was right in their own eyes. I feel.
Sheep as the symbol for him.
Well, there you go. A common, I think a common phrase that we use today in culture that could be related to the way Israel acted back then is, find your own truth. You do you. Like, you live your life, I'll live my life. Everyone did what was right in their own eyes. And so it was that kind of world where everyone just kind of had their own moral system and they just did whatever they wanted. And it led to a lot of destruction and chaos and death.
Yeah.
And it was a very crazy, dark time. And eventually, so what God would do is he'd raise up people to be judges for Israel, hence the name of the book.
Yes.
They would be people who would help save Israel as well as lead them back to God. Now, because Israel kept getting darker and more twisted, these judges progressively got worse. Last week we talked about, well, not last week, but last time we met together we talked about Gideon, who was a judge. And as we read from his story, he made some mistakes. He was a bit greedy for attention. Sampson is just a huge example of a judge that ultimately just did not do his job well.
Yeah,
Now,
one job.
the situation of Israel at this time is a surrounding nation called the Philistines had taken over the land. Now, if you don't know who this person is, this might not mean much to you. But interestingly enough, around this time, while Samson is born, another man is born named Samuel, who becomes a prophet of Israel, and later is the prophet that both anoints Saul and David as king, and actually is a good person that has a positive effect on Israel. But, well, Samuel is.
Yeah, I know. The good person.
Samuel's a good person. But before Samuel comes into being noticed and before he rises up, it's Samson's time. And Samson, before he's even born, is chosen by God to be a judge.
Right.
This angel appears to a woman, tells her you're going to have a son even though you haven't been able to have kids, and he's going to help save Israel. He's going to take care of Israel's enemies. But the only deal is you got to take a Nazirite vow. Now, a Nazirite vow is it's more complicated than this, but I'll highlight the basics.
Yeah.
You don't get drunk. You don't cut your hair. You don't touch dead things.
That one's weird.
The reason why is touching anything that was dead banned you from temple worship for a time, for a season.
Oh, it's kind of like
'Cause you were
a slap
unclean.
on the hand because you touched it. Like, what does that mean? Like, touch a...
It's complicated, but there's this whole system in Israel of clean and unclean. And I want to clarify that being unclean isn't the same as sinning. But there were certain things that made you unclean. And during that time when you were unclean, you couldn't go into the temple.
Right.
I guess a way to think of uncleanness, if we want to be, like, relate to it, imagine you just came into contact with someone with the plague going around right now.
Right.
You're not going to go out. You're going to keep to yourself. At least you should. You quarantine. That's kind of what this was like.
You quarantine yourself from
You
the
quarantine
temple?
yourself from the temple. Well, that's where everyone met. So you're basically removing yourself from society.
Right.
Because also, it was believed that if someone who touched something dead touched someone else, then they were unclean.
Ah.
So it's kind of like that. It was this... And there's all this debate on why that was a thing. Like, maybe God's reason was that these things did make people sick often, and he didn't want them to spread a disease around
Right.
and kill each other.
Yeah.
So who knows what the real precedent was. But the fact is, there were things that made you unclean. They didn't make you a sinner. They didn't make you evil, but they made you unclean. A Nazirite was someone who devoted their lives to God. So their vow was that they would never be separated from God. And that's why they weren't allowed to touch anything dead.
Right.
Because that would mean they had to be separated from God for a time. Quote unquote. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Take over the
Yeah.
temple. So that's the idea behind Nazirites. Samson was to be a Nazirite, to take the Nazirite vow. And so years pass. He grows up. And But it turns out Sampson has a bit of a problem. He has an appetite. And what he wants, Sampson gets. Sampson is the kind of person who's very demanding, and he just does whatever he wants. If he wants it, if he feels like it, doesn't matter what's at stake, doesn't matter what it costs, he's going to get it. And his biggest weakness of all was them Philistine women. He liked them Philistine women. I don't know what that says about anything, but that's just the objective fact.
That's just what it was.
And back in those days, Jews and Israelites were taught not to associate with other people groups and marry them or anything like that not because of racism, but because all of them came from pagan religions.
Right.
So the idea was that if you bring that into your home, you're going to be tempted. It's going to hurt your home. It's going to mess up your kids. They're going to be confused because they're not going to know what's right and what's wrong, so just don't mess with it. It's just not worth it. And so Samson, however, just didn't seem to care about that. He falls in love with a Philistine woman, and he's going to marry her. Like, things are going well with him. So, and this begins a series of stories that happen in Samson's life, and all of them are stories of compromise, are stories of Samson shrugging, and just like, whatever, it's fine. So this is the story of Shrugging Sampson. I'll try to keep these as brief as possible. Story number 1. So while he's engaged to this lady, there comes a situation where, I guess I should clarify real quick. God has told Samson his power is going to be with him. He's going to empower him to make a difference and save Israel and kick out the Philistines and, save the nation of Israel from being held captive. They're being tormented by the Philistines. They're being murdered, imprisoned. It's rough. It's a rough situation. So God's going to work through Samson to kick out these Philistines. And he's going to give him personal power to do it. Now, what might come to your mind, or maybe not, I don't know, but something that's interesting here in this story is that previous judges, their power was to lead people. Samson doesn't ever have an army. He's always on his own.
Right.
You want to know why? Because the Israelites didn't care at this time. They had become so numb to being imprisoned and ruled over. They were just kind of they shrugged.
Yeah.
The Israelites just shrugged, well, I guess they took my family away from me. Oh well, what you gonna do? We're ruled by the Philistines. It is what it is. So what if they worship other gods and they want us to worship him? Oh well, it's fine. Yeah. They just had begun to shrug at everything, and they just were passive. There was no one to fight against them. So God chose a man who would do it. Now, the reason why Samson fights is a little interesting. It's not for good reasons. It's not for virtue. It's not for valor. It's not to be a hero. We'll see. I'll show you in a second what this comes along to. But anyways, God is going to give Samson power to do this. So Samson is walking along, minding his own business, and all of a sudden a lion goes, BAM! Just jumps out. Lion jumps out. Samson grabs the lion and just rips it in two.
Wow.
Just shreds it in two and casts it aside. And just keeps going on his merry way. No big deal. Now, what's interesting is later he's on his way back through that same area, and he sees the carcass of the lion. It's been a while now. It's rotting away. And for some bizarre reason, bees have decided to make a nest in this carcass. They've built a hive. And he's like, that honey looks pretty good. I'm hungry. So he walks over and he scoops some honey out of this hive and goes, first of all, gross. You're eating honey out of a dead lion. That's weird, man. Second of all, he just broke the Nazarite vow.
Right.
Don't touch dead things. We just said this. It's pretty simple, Samson. Don't touch dead things. You just shoved your hand in a dead lion. So we already see Samson going,
Meh.
Shrug. That's fine. Now, God is very gracious to Samson, just like he was to Gideon. In this story, it's just like, okay, you broke your vow, but
Right.
I'm still going to work through you. I still have a plan. And so there's Samson's first little compromise. His first situation of shrugging at a value, shrugging at something that was supposed to be a virtue, of something he treasured and held close, and just kind of casting it aside. This next story is he's fallen in love with this woman, right? He's engaged to her. They're actually in the process of getting married, and everything's going pretty well. And then all of a sudden, he's at a big party, and there's all these friends around of hers and neighbors and stuff, and he looks at all these people and he notices they're kind of rich, they're kind of well-to-do, and so Samson apparently was a clever guy, and so he concocts this little riddle, and he gives him a little riddle. I don't remember what the riddle is off the top of my head, but it's basically like, never mind. I'm not gonna do it.
It's a good one.
He gives him a
you should
riddle.
look it up.
He gives them a riddle, and they're just all like, what in the world is the answer to that stupid riddle? I can't figure it out. And they're all getting driven crazy because they made a bet. He said, if you can solve this riddle, I'll buy each of you a fancy piece of clothing.
Right.
But he said, but if you can't solve the riddle within this time limit, you have to buy me each a fancy piece of clothing.
Right.
And so he's like, I got him. I'm going to get some nice clothes. And so, bit of a, whatever. Time passes, and everyone's like freaking out. They don't want to give, because the deal was for very expensive clothing.
Right.
And they're like, dude, this is not going to go well for us. We can't solve this stinking riddle. So they start tormenting Samson's bride-to-be, saying, if you don't tell us the answer to this riddle or find out what it is, we're going to burn your house down with you in it.
Yeah. That's nice.
A little extreme, but it's the Book of Judges. Everything's a little extreme.
Yeah, that's just how it is.
Wow.
And, so she starts like crying to Samson every day, saying, "You gotta tell me. Why won't you tell me the answer?" He's like, "I haven't even told my own mom and dad. Why would I tell you?" And she just starts wailing and saying, "You don't love me.
That's rough.
You don't care." And of course, he doesn't know that she's been threatened. Maybe she should have told him.
Right.
But in any case, eventually he's just like, "Fine. The answer to the riddle, darling, is this." And so she goes out and tells the men, and then they come back to Sif's like, "We figured out the answer to your riddle." And he's like, "Oh yeah?" And they tell him the answer, and like, dang it.
Yes.
But then he finds out his wife betrayed him and told them. And he feels betrayed by this.
Right.
It's like, now I have to spend lots of money and get them all this. Samson, you probably shouldn't have gotten yourself into this situation.
Right.
But the fact is, he feels betrayed. So he's furious at her, and he hates these men he's made this deal with. So what does Samson do? He goes and kills them.
Oh.
Kills them all. Goes into town and kills them all. Kills all those men. And then Samson returns home. Returns to his wife's. Returns to his wife's house. She's still with her family. And her dad meets Samson at the door and goes, "So, while you were gone, I thought you hated my daughter, so she married your best man."
Oh, okay.
Nice on.
Yeah.
So Samson's like, "I hate you Philistines. I hate you all." He gets very ticked. He gets very vengeful. So you know what he does? He does the next logical thing you do.
What's that?
He runs out into a field. He captures a bunch of jackals. He ties them together and ties torches to them and sends them loose into the Philistines' cornfields.
That's logical.
All the Philistines' cornfields are destroyed. Samson destroys them all. And the Philistines are like, furious.
Yeah.
Kill him.
Yes.
So they all come out to kill him. These armies of Philistines do. And Samson, because he's endued with power from God, kills them all.
Yeah.
Now, Samson's motives so far have not been good. He's made a lot of poor choices, but God is showing wrath towards the Philistines. So that's why God allows it and just says, you know what? These people need to go. They need to leave my people alone. So I'm going to use you even though you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Right.
I'm going to keep working through your life. So, seems like things are working out okay for Samson. Well, I mean, as okay as they can.
Right.
His wife is now married to his best man, so not his wife.
Yeah.
The Philistines now want him dead for his destruction. And some time passes. Samson runs and hides in a cliff, hides in a little cave, because he's like, "Oh, I just burned down all these cornfields and killed a bunch of men. I probably should lay low for a while." The local Israelites of where he lived are approached by the Philistines, and the Philistines say, "Hey, hand over Samson, because we're going to kill you all." So 3,000 Israelites gather around Samson and say, "Hey,
Hey.
the Philistines kind of want you arrested. Can you let us tie you up so we can hand you over to them, man?" Like, I'm serious. Like, it's that passive.
Yes.
Like, they're like really passive about it. It's like, "Please, can you And Samson's like, "Oh, sure. Yeah, you can tie me up and hand me over to him."
Right.
Because Samson is getting a little cocky at this point. Now, one little thing we gotta appreciate about Samson is Samson could have looked at his Israelite men and gotten mad. It's like, dude, you're gonna betray me too? You're gonna hand me over to those Philistines? You're gonna betray me? But he's like, no, these are my people. So he's good to them and says, okay, fine. So he goes, they tie him up, they present him to the Philistines, and then all the Philistines rush at him like a whole army. He's like, on this one guy, and he just goes, snaps the bonds. They're strapping him down, just snaps him right off. He looks around for a weapon, and the only thing he finds is the jawbone of a donkey. Samson, what did we talk about touching dead things? Samson grabs this jawbone of a donkey, and because God is with him, even though Samson just keeps making mistakes and just doesn't really care about anything, he just kind of shrugs off things that matter, God stays with him. And Samson kills them all with a jawbone of a donkey.
That's rough.
A whole army. Just
Wow.
this guy walking around with a jawbone and just go just smacking people with it. I'm like, what did that look like? Is it like from Lord of the Rings where Sauron swings his mace and like 50 people go, "Ah!"
Yes.
Or like any of those Warriors games where
Yes.
like one guy rushes into battle and like 100 people hit. I know. Donkeys aren't that big.
That's the thing.
So like this
It
is
wasn't the it wasn't. It wasn't,
I don't
it
know.
wasn't the jawbone.
Did he
It
use it as
was
a
pretty much
sword?
just one punching him.
yeah, he was one punch. Man.
Yeah.
Well, and the way they describe Samson, it seems like everyone's like, where does he get his strength from?
Yeah.
So you know what that makes it sound like? He was probably not that big and buff of a guy. I think he looked pretty average.
That's probably right. It's probably,
He was probably just a normal looking dude.
no.
Because everyone was just like, where's he get his super strength from? He's super strong. Where's it come from? He must have been just an average looking guy. He just shows up with a donkey's jawbone and goes, ha ha!
Just one punch that guy's face off.
It was. So, needless to say, after that victory, Samson, because he does realize it's a victory, he says, God gave me this victory. But then he kind of boasts about himself and pats himself on the back because he's like, I'm so cool. I'm
Yes.
pretty great. I just killed a bunch of people with a donkey's jawbone. I'm a hero. He actually stays the judge of Israel for 20 years after that. And during those 20 years, I can't tell you what happened. It's blank. It doesn't say.
He just drops
It
off
says,
the map.
it just says Samson was judge for Israel for 20 years after that. Like, okay. So what happened? Well, we don't know what happened in between, but we do know what the end is like.
Yes.
Samson thinks himself a superstar. In fact, the story of Samson ends where he is now on vacation. Not joking. He's in the Florida, the California, whatever you want to call it.
Hey, man.
Yeah, he's in the Florida, California of Philistine. He's in the enemy's camp, and they all hate him and want him dead, but he's just like, hey, what are you going to do? I can kill you with anything.
Right.
And so he's just bumming around, and it says that he's like seeing prostitutes, and he's just breaking every rule in the book, yet for some reason God stays with him, till finally it comes to a boiling point where he meets a prostitute named Delilah.
Ooh, there it is.
Hey there, Delilah, this is your ex-boyfriend Samson, and you thought lifting weights made me so buff and handsome, but you were wrong.
Yes.
Look up that song. I think it's called Delilah by Tim Hawkins. Classic.
Yeah.
It's a song about Samson. It's pretty funny.
Collides with this very well.
Yes, it'll follow up well. So that's your homework after this.
Yes.
Watch Tim Hawkins' Delilah.
Yes.
You won't be disappointed. It's pretty funny stuff.
Yes. It's very funny. Very funny.
So, in other words, Samson runs into Delilah. She actually has been bought off by the Philistine rulers and officials saying, dude, please, figure out what this man's where he gets his strength from.
Yes.
We'll pay you.
Why is he so strong?
Basically, the amount they offer her, like not exaggerating, an equivalent is like $11 million today.
Right.
Ish. Like, we'll pay you millions. Please
Right.
stop this man. He's literally destroying our nation. And so Delilah's like, yeah, sure. Why not? It's $11 million.
Right.
Who's this guy to me? So she starts they play like this coy game of going back and forth of, it's a weird game.
Yeah.
But basically it's this back and forth where Samson's like, oh, this is actually where my power comes from. If you hit
from
me
my
on the head with a
nose."
coconut.
It comes from my nose.
Not
Pull
like-
my ears.
Pull my ears. Nothing quite that ridiculous,
I
but
clap my hands twice every morning.
but I think there's one where it's like, if you take 7 bowstrings that are made of this fine material that have never
Yes.
been
Yeah,
used
that's
and tie me up with those, my power will leave me.
Yes.
And she does it, and then she says, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. And he goes, and she's like, you lied to me. You don't love me. And it just became this weird game back and forth
Yes.
between the two of them. And then it just kept at this for a while till finally, it says she pestered him to find out his weakness to the point it says where he wanted to die. So she's driving him crazy. And he finally says, fine, if you cut my hair, which has never been cut in my life, I will lose my power. Now, I want to clarify that Samson doesn't have tangled Rapunzel syndrome, where he has magical hair where if he sings a song, it'll heal people or give him superpowers.
Oof.
His hair is just the only reason his hair being cut will remove his power from him is because that's the last vow. It's the only
The
thing.
final straw.
It's the only thing from God that he has honored thus far. However, when he told this woman that was the only thing, he basically was also at the same time tabling it and saying, you know what, you're more important than what really matters to me. You're more important than this vow I made.
Yeah, right.
So I'm going to put it on the table. There it is, baby.
There it is,
There it is, baby. I never want to say that word again. Baby, there it is, baby. Take it all. Baby. Baby. So he puts it on the table before her. She has the Philistine army come in at night. She cuts his hair. And then she's like,
Oh, you got
oh,
another call.
Samson, the Philistines are here. And then he's like, I'll just break the cords like I always have. But God has left him. It explicitly says, the Lord had left him because he broke the final strand of the
Right.
law, of his promises to God. He'd finally rejected everything about God, all of what was important, all of that mattered, and that was the last straw.
Yeah.
And so Samson's arrested by the Philistine army. He's captured. He's in prison. His eyes are gouged out. He's forced to work at a grain mill and press grain. It's a sad ending for Samson. So, what was Samson's dilemma? Samson's dilemma in all of this, and if we go back to the core of what his real problem is, it's that Samson wanted to do what he thought was right in his own eyes.
Yep.
Samson only ever looked out for Samson. Samson didn't care. He would give up anything for a temporary pleasure, for a temporary passion, for a temporary moment of satisfaction. I mean, if we want to think about just like the silly story of the honey, he broke one of the rules just so he could have a teeny bit of honey
That was inside of a dead
inside
lion.
of a dead lion. Samson constantly, he lived a life that was just driven by what he wanted in the moment. So much so that he would just throw aside things like, you know what, he'd shrug. He'd shrug and be like, it's not that important. Which often led to Samson's,
Demise.
led to his demise. But it also led to his, trying to find the right word.
Doom.
It led to a decision. It always led to Samson's decision, which was he would always settle on those temporary things.
Yep.
And he'd always disregard what truly mattered. And the result was that Samson was betrayed. Samson put his faith in the values of the world, in the values of the culture around him, in his values, his truth, his desires, his wants, rather than the values of God. He put his values time and time again into a valueless world. And that world constantly turned around and bit him, constantly turned around and betrayed him. But I wanted to look at this bizarre picture. I'm going to read this because I felt like God kind of gave me this thought, and that's that Samson had supernatural strength from God, yet he more highly valued temporary pleasures from people who betrayed him at the drop of a hat. And this is the way sin works.
Yep.
Samson valued more a temporary fleeting moment of getting what he wanted rather than supernatural power from God. I mean, think about it. This guy was a living Hercules.
Yeah.
He could do anything,
The real stuff.
The real thing, the real article. He was a superpowered man. But he valued temporary, little meaningless things over that. And he constantly got betrayed for it. So why do we debate ourselves if we want to learn from Samson's story? If our values are based on the values of our culture, of our world, we're victim to temporary passions and irrational decisions. Because we're broken and sinful. Our world is broken and sinful.
Yep.
We're damaged. Even good people are broken and sinful. We all have fallen. Without Jesus, the world's values are twisted. Without Jesus, our values are twisted. They're not accurate. So what I want is not always what's best for me. If we fall victim to the trap Samson fell victim to, it's the pursuit of what you want will lead you away from what you need. And it will ultimately betray you.
Yep.
This world will always betray you. Now, I'm not saying this to make you live in fear and be like, can't trust anybody.
Yeah.
Everyone's out to get me. No, I'm just saying, like, there's a scripture in the New Testament that says, do not tie yourself to someone who is not a Christian. I'm paraphrasing.
Right.
But it literally says, don't even bother. Now, a lot of people take that to be like, don't marry a non-believer, don't date a non-believer. But actually, this means tying yourself in any way, like strapping yourself to any person. So tying yourself so strongly to a friend that you're relying on them who's not a believer. And the only reason why is not because they're less than you. It's not because they're less of a person. It's because without Jesus, we're broken, we're damaged, we're sinful, we're confused, and our values are askew. You can't bind yourself to this world. And sadly, without Jesus, we belong to this world, all of us. That's where we come from. No longer if you believe in Jesus, you don't belong to this world anymore.
Right.
You're different now. You're being restored. Our values are we're seeing reality for what it really is. So here's the solution to avoid debating ourselves, to making these terrible decisions that lead us into, these decisions that are based on pursuing temporary pleasures that always forsake what... I'm talking about compromise here. Like, there's too often we debate ourselves by compromise. We, give up something that's valuable or give up something that we hold dear or that we believed in because, it's inconvenient now. We shrug, like Samson.
I'd rather go do this
Because now it's inconvenient. And then we'll start to come up with reasons like, let's be honest, I never really believed that way. Or if we want to stay, convince ourselves we still believe, we'll be like, I don't think Jesus meant it that way. Or, I don't think the Bible really, it doesn't say that. I think that's taken out of Kant. We try to justify ourselves. We can't do that. The solution is that we need to learn God's values because they last throughout your lifetime. They'll stay with you from beginning to end, through the highs and the lows. God's values will take you and carry you through the darkest storms and the lowest valleys. When we trust in God's values, He's an anchor, a solid foundation to build our lives on. Jesus Christ called Himself the cornerstone, which is literally... in construction back in those old days, it was the stone that every other stone was built off of. God is our platform. He's our starting point. Everything we do in our lives needs to be built off of Him and on Him.
She really likes the scripture about not tying yourself to unbelievers. Wanted me to tell you that.
Okay. I need to I'll find out where that passage is exactly so I can put it on here in a second. When I wrap up here, I'll find that, okay? Yes, because I always want to make sure you guys don't think I'm just making something up either. And it's also just good to see where stuff like that comes from.
This paper's actually blank.
This paper's blank. Look, there's nothing on it. I'm just kidding, it's a bag. But a quick passage I wanted to share on this about God's values is Philippians 4:8, actually. Right here, I have my Bible app. I forgot my Bible at home. I know. Bible. No. Philippians. God's values, God's word. I love this perspective. Too often the world tells you to think about what's bad. Drown yourself in what's negative.
Right.
Drown yourself in what's dark.
Especially
There's no
these
hope.
days.
There's no hope. There's no future. There's so many times Becky likes to watch shows that are meant for teenagers or young adults so that she can see what the media is producing for you guys.
Right.
And I hate them all because their message is always so bleak. They never have a
Yeah.
message that's positive. It's always a message that's like, well, the world sucks. You better learn to deal with it. That's always their
Wow.
message. Their message is never about learning to be a better person who fights through a dark world, who learns to be. I love stories. There aren't that many around today, sadly, but I love stories of characters who are like a light in the darkness. I love stories of characters who are like, there's this like beacon in a dark world. If I was to think of one just off the top of my head, there's a movie called Life is Beautiful or something like that. It's a story about Nazi Germany, of all things. It's a story about a Jewish man who is like, he's just this amazing upbeat guy who does his best to keep his son happy and keep his son cheered up in a very dark time because they get imprisoned at a compound. And it's just this dad constantly just being like, son, it's okay. And it's amazing. Like, I love
It's
it.
okay. Oof.
But it's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. I love this character. But I love stories like that because I believe that's who God wants us to be. We're not to be drowned in the darkness of the world. We're to be
It's
beacons.
fine.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's part of the problem when you start just going like, whatever.
Yeah.
When you just start shrugging,
Right.
when you stop caring, that's when you become hopeless. That's when life becomes bleak. That's when the future becomes bleak. And that's when we become just like everybody else. Because the truth about Samson and the tragedy of Samson is he was just like everybody else.
A great blob.
Yeah. He was just like his culture. His whole society, Israel at that time had just given up. They all shrugged. Samson was just a product of the times. He wasn't special. He wasn't any different. The only difference is that God saw that he could use him even though he was a stubborn jerk. So, I mean, the cool part of it is that God always has his way.
Right.
And that's a good thing, just so you know.
Yeah.
God has always the best in mind. He loves his people. He cares for his people. The only reason God wanted to destroy the Philistines is because they were hurting his people. Now, I will also say that God loves everybody. The Bible makes it clear. He loves everybody, but he will always prioritize his people. But the fact is, he wants everyone to be his people. He does. He does. He wants everybody to be his people. He wants everyone to know him because he's where life is.
Right.
God doesn't want anyone to be destroyed. But if it's between you losing your walk with God and he'll choose you. That's just the kind of God we serve. He loves his people, and he's going to fight for you. And he'd be unjust if he didn't look after his people.
Right.
So Samson's story doesn't quite end where we left off. I'm going to wrap up real quick. I'm going late here, and I think Becky's trying to get a hold of me. But Samson's story ends. Samson's story ends with him. He's arrested. His eyes have been ripped out.
That's
He's
rough.
he's now a slave. Time passes, and eventually all the leaders all the Philistine leaders bring him out in public to mock him. Like, here's that guy who thought he was so tough, but now look at him. So they chain him between two pillars, and they all look down on him. And apparently these pillars kind of helped hold up the whole plaza and everything. They're all just looking at me like, what a lunatic. And then they start worshiping and praising their god, Dagon, who ironically is not a god of... Well, here's the weird thing. Dagon is the god of grain and hay. But
So
Baal,
he is Baal.
No, but Baal isn't. Kind of weird.
So he is Baal.
So, a lot of people think Dagon's some kind of fish god, but actually apparently he was the god of grain. There you go. I don't know. There's random facts.
So he is a Baal of hay.
He's a Baal of hay. Dagon's the Baal of hay.
A Baal of hay
If you
with
do,
a
you'll
crown.
find a bunch of fish gods, because that's what everyone thinks, because Lovecraft wrote a story about
It's
him or something.
a Baal of hay.
But
a
anyways-
Baal of hay with a crown on it.
Basically, they're just a cute little hay bale with a little face drawn on it. But they're like sacrificing people to it. I'm sorry, that's weird and dark. But anyways.
Wow.
Anyway, they're worshiping their God and they're doing all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, in the moment, Samson is there and he says, and he's realized the error of his ways at this point.
Yes.
He realizes his strength was never his own. It came from God, and he'd broken his vow with God. He'd settled for temporary things that didn't matter. And even though in the moment his motivations aren't 100% pure, I'll be honest, there's a side of him that's still kind of revenge-based.
Yeah.
But he says, God, can I just have one last ounce of strength so that I can teach these guys a lesson? And because God cares about his people, and because God's setting the Philistines on a journey of being destroyed and removed, because I'll be honest, Samson doesn't destroy the Philistines, but he does start the process of them being kicked out of Israel.
Right.
So what happens is God does listen. He fills Samson with his power, and so Samson goes, and the two pillars he's strapped to come crumbling down on top of him. He dies in the process, but the whole building collapses and every Philistine leader in it dies.
Yes.
And the record says that he killed more people in that 1 second than he did in his whole career as a powerful man.
Yes.
So
But
that ends the story of Samson.
But you gotta admit, I mean, there's two pillars that hold up the whole entire town. Really? You don't think God put them there on purpose? I mean, really? They're two pillars. Two pillars. It's like pulling that one little piece out of like a hay bale. So I mean,
It was all set up.
Yes.
So even though Samson debated himself and he ultimately never really recovered,
Right.
he did still get to be used by God
Yes.
in the end. Because God gives us as many opportunities as possible. Because he loves you. He cares for you. So even if you have done this, you've compromised, you've let go of a moral or a value for a temporary pleasure or a temporary decision that has long-term consequences, God isn't done with you. He hasn't forsaken you. He doesn't love you less. He still has grace towards you. He still cares as much as anybody else. And he still has a plan for your life. But my encouragement and my challenge to you is that you seek to not make those same decisions again or live that kind of life again or altogether avoid it.
Yes.
And you do that by learning and clinging to God's values rather than the values of this world. I have ran into so many people that tell me like, but we need to value this, and this is important. This is what the world's saying is important. But I'm like, that same world will say they love these people, but then they'll turn around and hate their parents. They'll turn around and hate their neighbors. I have some relatives who will say like we need to support this people group. We need to look after this people group. But then they're terrible to their family. They're terrible to their neighbors. All their neighbors are afraid of them and want to stay far away from them because she's so mean and bitter, this person. And I'm like, that's not okay. We can't live that way. The world's way is wrong. It says things that sound right, but they can't because I look at the way the world is, and just look at the way the world is, and you're like, it doesn't match up. It sounds good, but it doesn't work. Only God's values hold true. Sometimes what he values is hard to swallow, sometimes it's uncomfortable, and sometimes what God values will make you have to give up something that you want. Samson wanted a lot of things, but he would have done better if he'd given them up.
Right.
If he'd held back and honored God's values. Now, I'm not saying you have to take a Nazirite vow and grow your hair out. That was a Jewish thing. That's a thing of the past. You don't have to worry about that. But we need to honor God and learn his values. So you need to spend time in the Word. You need to spend time reading the Bible, studying his Word, getting to know his values, getting to know what he holds close, getting to know what he holds dear, get to know Jesus better. Read the Gospels, read the New Testament.
Yep.
Really do, because if you really want to value what God values, you need to know what he values. And the more familiar we become with his values, the easier it is to hold them close. Jesus said, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments, meaning you'll hold them close to you. If we love God, then we need to hold close his commandments, or we risk shrugging like Samson did.
Shrugging it
And
off.
debating ourselves. So,
Don't want to do that.
would you join with me in a moment of prayer? Lord, I thank you so much for my friends. I thank you for these young people. I thank you God, that you're always with them. And even though we can't be together in person, and even though they've been through a rough season and a rough time, and even though the world is broken and full of hurt and pain and injustice, you're always good, God. And I just pray that at the end of the day, your love would shine through and your goodness would shine through, Lord. And I ask that you teach us all to care for each other more and reach out to each other. God, I pray for these young people that you would give them strength not to compromise what you value, God, because what you value matters most. You made this world. You made us. You know what's best for us. You know what's best for the world because you love this world. You love the people in it. And I just pray, God, that you just move in every young person's life and help us not to just shrug at things or just say, I don't really need to care. Lord, I pray that you would stir in every young person a strength to care and get involved and listen in and really hold close to what you value. And I thank you so much for this, Jesus. Just pray that you be with them today. Give them a great week, Lord, and just have your way in their lives. And we pray all this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. So, real quick in wrapping up, I'm going to look up that verse for Chloe and for the rest of you. I might need to take a call real quick. Zach, could you look up that passage, or
We could finish it up.
okay, I'll just finish it up. Okay.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Okay, I'm gonna look this up real quick. Let me see if I can remember this. I'm trying to remember the exact phrasing in the Bible so that I can look it up. That's always the trick, and the exact version. I feel. It's here. Let me see. No. Wow. Let's try this.
Wow.
Good memes.
Smash Bros?
Smash Bros?
I'm looking. How about... Let me if I do this. Maybe if I type this in, we'll find it.
Dead air tie.
You're too slow. You're too slow. You're too slow.
We'll be right back.
You're too slow.
Let's see. I'm doing my research.
You're too slow.
Tumbleweeds. Imagine
I'm
tumbleweeds
looking.
going by.
I'm looking.
It's hot, dry desert.
Uh,
Even the cactuses are dying. It's so hot.
this is one that relates to it, but it's not the one I'm thinking of. In James 4:4, there's a passage that says, let me check the whole thing. Maybe it's here after all. No, this isn't the one I'm thinking of, but James 4:4 says, "You idolaters, don't you realize that friendship with the world makes you an enemy of God? I say it again. If you want to be a friend of the world, you make yourself an enemy of God." I mean, that's a pretty tough statement there.
Yeah.
That's not exactly the one I'm thinking of, but the idea behind that one is that when it says friend of the world, it's not saying you can't be friends with people that don't know Jesus. That's not what it's saying. What it's saying is you become so associated with sin in the world,
Right.
and not God, that you've walked away from God, basically.
Yeah.
You've chosen to be more associated with it, kind of like Sampson. He was more associated
Yeah.
with the people of his time.
Well, he just
Then-
did whatever he wanted.
Yeah,
He
just like
did-
the people
there,
of that time.
There was no, no guilt, no nothing. He's just kind of like, meh. Like you said, shrugs. He's just, meh, I'm going to do whatever I want.
This one, I don't think this is it either. Man, I'm sorry. Bob Saget. I can't find where it is.
What are frogs? Right. What are frogs? What are
What are frogs?
I could ask Pastor. I bet he remembers. Pastor! Pastor!
No, that's not gonna work. here.
Dad!
Oh,
Almost. We have a question for you real quick before we wrap up. Do you remember where the passage is about not tethering yourself to people in the world? You know what I'm talking about?
Be separate.
Yes.
Corinthians.
First or second? I'm drawing a blank. I can't.
Come out from among them, says the Lord. I'm gonna find it for you.
We're having a hard time finding it. Shame on
Yeah.
us.
wow.
Let me see.
How many pastors does it take to find a
I know, right?
passage?
2 Corinthians 6:17, huh?
Or 14 through 18.
2 Corinthians, though?
Yep.
2 Corinthians, what was it again?
6, 14 through 18.
2 Corinthians 6,
We're getting there.
14 through 18. Let's see if that's the one. Ah, I found it. That's it.
Perfect timing. Yeah.
2 Corinthians 6:14 says, "Don't team up with those who are unbelievers. How can righteousness be a partner with wickedness? How can light live with darkness? What harmony can there be between Christ and the devil? How can a believer be a partner with an unbeliever? And what union can there be between God's temple and idols? For we are the temple of the living God." So that's the one. That is the one I was thinking of. Pastor, I knew he'd figure. I knew he'd know.
Yeah.
So there it is, Chloe. 2 Corinthians 6, starting with verse 14. Okay?
Chloe says good wisdom, George.
Ah. Yes.
So,
Thank you, Chloe. Thank you.
I got to get going. Thank you guys for coming out and joining us. Sorry I was trying to stay an hour today.
Yeah. Well.
But thank you for coming out tonight, and we'll see you again next week. I think I've announced everything there is to announce at this point. If you missed the announcements, check the beginning of the video. When this renders, it'll be up on the page.
Okay.
So I just need to wrap up is the only reason. I'm not going to repeat them all. But I will say we will have Minecraft again this weekend. I'll probably be on at 7
Smash
p.m.
Bros?
If you guys want to get on any
Minecraft?
other time, feel free to. It'll be fun.
Smash Bros?
So until then, you guys take care, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Bye.